Okay, so today you guys are going to be looking at your capabilities booklet, which you've been given, and it starts off with managing the capabilities. We're going to talk through this section. You need to be following along and highlighting or making notes as we go through. If we begin at the beginning, very good place to start. We need to just introduce the word capability to you again. Now, you've already done these because in year 10 you did PLP. And basically what we're looking at is 7 essential areas that you need to develop to be not only a good student but prepared for life after school. So in the research project you're given a couple of capabilities to explore, and it's really important that you focus either on one or maybe two. You don't need to focus on all 7. Only the detail counts. So if you try to do 7 you're going to run out of room to do the detail. Now, the reason why you have to do these is because they're more important than your grades. You know, at the end of the day, getting an A in research project might help you get a good ATAR, but when you get to university or TAFE or a job, if you don't know how to speak with strangers, that's far more important, and that's going to have a much greater impact on your life. So what are the 7? We have literacy, numeracy, and ICT, which means information communication technology. We have intercultural understanding, ethical understanding, personal and social development, and critical and creative thinking. So they're the exact same that you did in PLP. You should be working through the activities in this booklet today to choose one that you would like to focus on for your research project. Now, it's at a point where your ideas are sort of developing still with your question, but you should have a fairly solid idea of where you're going. So you might not have your question perfect, you might not have a question at all, but you should have an idea of a topic or a theme that you're exploring. So when you're trying to do this at a higher level, you're trying to get an understanding of the conceptual link behind the capability. So that's the what is it about on a bigger level? Why is this important to my research? As well as more practical links. So have a look at the example on the bottom there. It shows someone was doing Should Australia Stop Refugee Boats? And very practically, it was talking about the intercultural understanding, because they were going to have to interact with people from different cultures. So that's very practical. They would also have to reflect on what it means to be Australian, what it means to be a refugee, and think about culture that way. But then at a deeper level, it's actually asking the student to think about how they interact with society, how the media interacts with society, and how our cultural interactions shape what we do. So that's obviously a higher level response. If you can use the SACE descriptors that we'll be going through in your folio at a very basic level, you'll be okay. If you are unable to work through those, then you're going to have to make sure that you are coming to extra support for this, because this is 1/6 of your Year 12 folio grade. So another example for you to look at, this person was looking at the personal and social capability, and they were looking at how they might design or plan a mural for their local swimming pool. And here they've been given the dot points, which are the SACE descriptors, and then on the other side we see how they've tried to make it relevant to their research. So SACE tells us that personal and social capability means that you participate actively in learning, work and life. And on the right hand side here we have how they're going to do it. Well, they're going to approach the council, they're going to create a work plan, they're going to have a design brief, they've got an opinion about the role of art. So they're actually integrating what they are going to do. You'll notice that all those sentences say I will, I want, I would, I have, all that. That kind of language is what's working here. So the next activity, I guess, that we want you to do is to start to think about which would be relevant to you, and that's what the rest of this booklet is. So as you go through, you'll see that there is tables that I would like you to fill in. So there is the personal and social one, the example already filled in on the front page. As you turn over, there's literacy, numeracy, ICT, critical and creative thinking, and then the personal, social, ethical, and intercultural. So before we move on to the next section, I'd like you to pause the video. I'd like you to read through each of the dot points, and I'd like you to have a think about whether they relate to your topic or question or theme at the moment. Then, once you've highlighted those dot points, I want you to think about how you might actually practice those. So, how would you actually set goals, or what literacy skills would you actually be using? That kind of thing. This is just a planning document. This is something you could hand up on Friday as evidence of having developed your project this week. It doesn't have to be awfully sophisticated yet, but just getting you to start to think about how you would do this. So pause the video, come back to this section when you're ready. Okay, so hopefully at this point you've gone through the 7 tables, you've highlighted the relevant key points, and then you've written some suggestions of how you might work on that. What you then need to do is summarize this information into a reflection. And you can see on the screen that there is an example one here. So this person has chosen personal, social, and intercultural, and then they go through why they've chosen that. Now, one of the things I guess you need to be aware of is that this is very personal and it must be about what you want to develop. So there's no right or wrong here. There's just more detail. And if you have a look there, it says tips and tricks. It must relate to your question. So it can't just be literacy because you're going to write stuff. That doesn't make sense. It has to be literacy because your topic is about the media, or it has to be personal social because it is about how people personally use drugs, or it is about social because it is the it's a social epidemic. So you need to make sure you show an understanding of the capability, and there's an example there. So talking about how literacy is essential to research because it's communication. It helps us find out when we've got fake or biased news. And so that's what someone's written about why they've chosen literacy. But further to that, you have to actually go into the skills of capability as well. So not just why it's important, but what it actually means. And then this student is able to show 2 different levels of thinking, defining it, getting the basics. You could Google what is literacy and get that. And then you could Google how do I use literacy in research, and you can get some more ideas there as well. So it's about really thinking about what does it mean for me, what does it mean for research, what does it mean for my project. So to help you with this thinking, we have some activities that you can do. So on the next page is a table, and what we want you to do is to see if you can figure out which capability matches the other. So when designing your survey, you research the appropriate terms to use when referring to a group of people in social environments. It's been cut off. You have to draw a line from the description to the capability. So pause the video, do that now. Then we have some tables where we're asking you to fill in how you might link certain capabilities. So question 1 says, should Australia ban live cattle exports? Now a student did this and they were thinking about whether they should do critical, creative, literacy or ethical. So your job here is to try to think about how you would link this capability to the question. So you've got critical, creative, literacy, ethical there. See what you can fill in. Once you've finished, have a look at the we've provided to see if you've got anything similar or different. Add in some extra ones if you need them. So pause the video to complete the activity. Once you've finished your table, you might like to have a go at this Venn diagram where we are looking at the idea that ethical, personal, social may overlap. So capabilities are not defined specifically to one particular aspect. you might find that some of your behaviours for ethical are the same behaviours you're using for personal social. So what are the necessary steps a student must take to be successful in the research project? I want you to have a look at your ethical descriptors from the table. Write down anything you would do to be ethical. Write down any personal social skills you're developing, and anything that overlaps, put in the middle. Pause the video to complete the activity. So once you've had a look at some of the answers, which are on the next page, there is a table that goes through the character strengths. So the character strengths is something you were introduced to last year and in Year 9, and there are different ways of thinking about the skills we have as people. So what we have done here is mapped those for you. So we've figured out that literacy has some organising elements, which basically just means things it involves. Then we have some more specific language in the second column. And then we have some examples of other ways this capability links to the character strength. The idea of these tables is for you to read through and to take keywords out of this to help you shape your understanding. So when we did the first little tables, you probably didn't have a lot to write. The idea would be now that you've worked through these activities, you could go back and add in more to those tables. If you would still like to continue to think in a more guided way, still thinking you're not confident with your capabilities, then the last section is a much more structured reflection. So in this reflection, it would be really important that you only pick the capabilities that are possibly relevant to your question or topic, because this will take a long time otherwise. So there is the option to do all 7 there, but you probably don't need to do all 7. You should by this point have rolled out a couple of capabilities, and then what we want you to do is have a look at some of the skills you currently have in these areas, and on the left hand side you need to write what can you do at the moment, and then on the right hand side what could you improve on. So you can see the example on the screen there says I can currently read different texts confidently, but on the right hand side you can see they'd like to improve their ability to read more complex texts such as the medical reports or the academic journals. So this booklet is designed to help you to understand the capabilities, but it is going to rely on you actively participating in the tasks, giving it a shot, and then going back, reflecting and improving. The things you fill in can be handed in to me on Friday as evidence of your development for your planning this week. Good luck.